Hi BookTube, it's Amy. I've got a fresh haircut, just had this trimmed today, and a fresh glass of wine from a fresh bottle of wine. So I thought I would sit down and film a recent reads video. Once upon a time, earlier this year and last year, I used to do a weekly Friday reads video, but I've sort of fallen out of the habit of it. And that was mainly because I noticed that I was getting fewer and fewer views on those, and there were a couple of Friday reads where I posted and nobody commented or really interacted with the videos at all. And so I thought, well, no one's really interested in these, I'm going to stop doing them. But I thought I would do one today, do a recent reads video today, and let me know if you want to start seeing Friday reads again, because I wouldn't mind starting to film those as I used to. So at the moment, I'm not even sure what kind of wine this is. One of the bottles from the Italian section at the LCBO, but it's good. On to the books though. I have started reading JR by William Gaddis. Earlier this year I read The Recognitions and really enjoyed it, although it did take me several months of on and off reading to get through it. Because although I do like William Gaddis's writing style, it takes a significant amount of concentration. I think even more concentration than it takes to read someone like Proust. Because at least when you're reading Proust, it's complete sentences, even if they are long. Whereas in JR, you get fragments. And as the reader, it's almost as though you are a stranger standing in a crowd or eavesdropping in a room, and you're just picking up on fragments of conversations here and there, fragments of TV and radio, fragments of strangers yelling on the corner. And for that reason, it's a little bit hard to follow, because sometimes the dialogue fades in and out while being interrupted by other things. And although I really like it, it is a little bit cumbersome to read, and it's a process, and it does take more concentration than a typical book. So for that reason, I am approaching JR quite slowly again. I think I read for 2 hours last week, and I'm only just 118 pages in here. But the plot of this one does interest me a lot more than The Recognitions, and I have been told that JR is the superior novel when compared to The Recognitions. And the back of the book says that JR is about a schoolboy. Gaddis is an American author, so he's an American schoolboy who decides to start his own company or something, or get into business or invest in the stock market. I'm not sure exactly what goes down here. But the catalyst is this school trip to New York, to Wall Street, so that the class can buy this stock. And I've gotten to the point in the story where the teacher has bundled all these children, all these school children, onto this train. They've gone into the city and they've purchased their single stock with their, I think it's something like $26 that they pooled together. They purchased this stock, and so now they are owners in the company. And it's this electronics or cable company of some sort, a company that produces television. And they've gone to the offices here, and they're treating them as, miniature shareholders, owners in the company, people to whom the board is responsible to. And they're supposed to have this lunch, but there's this water leak or something, and so they don't get to have their boxed lunches. And the teachers take them out and buy them food from a lunch counter somewhere. And thankfully, one of the other teachers happens to be in New York on his own business and is able to pitch some money in, because the teacher who brought all these kids into the city didn't bring enough cash to buy them all lunch, thinking that it would be provided by this company. But so that's going down. But meanwhile, we also have this lawyer who shows up in the opening scene of the novel, and he visits these women who all live together. It's a little bit difficult to know what their age is. I would suggest that they're probably in their 30s to middle age. But he is coming to talk about an estate and to get someone's signature and to determine if someone is the legal heir for an estate. And I'm not entirely sure the relationship between these women and the lawyer and JR, but I think perhaps JR might be related to what's going down there in some way. But we do have, I think his name is Edward, who is in his father's studio, and I think Edward is the one who is supposed to be inheriting, but there's some question about his birth as to whether he is the biological son of this man who has died and whether he's actually going to be able to inherit. So these complex relationships. But I really enjoyed the section at the school where representatives of this, I think it's a closed circuit or an open circuit, I'm not sure which it was, television system which is installed in this school. And I would suggest that it's either, middle school kids or young high school kids at this school, given the nature of the lessons they're learning. But these representatives from this cable company who are in some way responsible for this television system in the school come to pay a visit, and they're in an office somewhere seeing all the feeds in the different classrooms, and we get things interspersed, students having issues, teachers having issues, teachers trying to be the best, and then all this propaganda that's going on about what it means to be American and capitalism and what it means to be in business. And it's all very interesting. And I believe, let me double check, I think this novel was published in 1971. So this is written quite a bit after the Recognitions, which, as I recall, was published in the 1950s. So this is definitely a novel of a different era. And whereas the Recognitions was interested in sort of perspectives on art, this one is very much interested in perspectives on economy and capitalism. And it's shaping up to be quite a hilarious novel. I'm looking at the back here and I'm noticing that I missed this, but yeah, I do believe it is a middle school, because it says that JR is a 6th grader, so he's in grade 6, which, at least from my perspective as a Canadian, for us, grade 6 does tend to be in middle school. I'm not quite sure how it fits into the American school system. I believe in some cases they include grade 6 with elementary school and just have their version of the middle school as 7 and 8. But irregardless, he is sort of within that middle school age bracket. So I would guess he's probably 11 or 12 here. So he's this kid who I guess is going to get into building an empire. And we have here on the back, at the center of JR is JR Vansant, a very average 6th grader from Long Island with torn sneakers, a runny nose, and a juvenile fascination with junk mail, get-rich-quick offers. Responding to one, he sees a small return. Soon he is running a paper empire out of a phone booth in the school hallway. Everyone from the school staff to the municipal government to the squabbling heirs of a player piano company to the titans of Wall Street and the politicians in Washington will soon be caught up in the endlessly ballooning bubble of the JR family of companies. It's saying here first published in 1975, but I thought that's interesting. So inside the book, it does say copyright 1971, but the book itself was published in 1975. So maybe that 1971 copyright date is in reference to Gaddis copywriting the idea. According to the introduction, he wrote a letter to himself to put in print this concept for the novel so that he could copyright it, to give himself time to write it before somebody else did. So I'm assuming that's what that 1971 copyright date is in reference to. If you know otherwise, please correct me in the comments below. but according to the back, first published in 1975. And the commentary here says, it is also a book about suburban development and urban decay, divorce proceedings and disputed wills, the crumbling facade of Western civilization, and the impossible demands of love and art, with characters ranging from the earnest young composer Edward Bast to the berserk publicist David Off. Told almost entirely through dialogue, Gaddis's novel is both a literary tour de force and an unsurpassing reckoning with the way we live now. I am skeptical whenever someone uses tour de force. It's certainly an overused term, but perhaps Gaddis is one of the few authors where I think that type of praise is warranted. But yeah, in terms of the suburban development and urban decay, I'm already starting to see in the first 100 pages some themes around suburban development. The women who live together in the house who are visited by the lawyer regarding Edward's status, and on the back here it's letting us know that Edward is the musician, he's the composer. Edward is the composer who may or may not be the heir to this fortune. But the women who raised Edward are commenting on whether these trees are still there or they're gone. They seem to really like these trees, but they are looking out into what I think would have been a forested area and anticipating the building of this new suburban area, these new subdivisions, which begins with the destruction of these trees. And we've already seen a few of the trees get destroyed and some commentary on that. But so far, a good read, and I'll probably read 100 pages or so more this weekend. But in addition to that, I've started reading a little bit of this volume of the Tattler that I had picked up. And I've just got a bookmark in here, but I've read just a few entries here one evening before bed. And I quite enjoyed it. I'm enjoying his witty writing style, the humor of it, and the fact that when people have apparently written him letters, he doesn't always respond here as they would perhaps hope he would respond. Rather, he takes their letters to turn it into something entertaining here. But he's also drawing heavily on classic works of literature. And one entry here led me to wish that I had a copy of the Iliad. The Iliad. I wish I had a copy of the Iliad here to read. But I'm trying to find the quote here. I should have looked this up before I sat down, but there was, oh no, that's Milton that he's quoting there. That's not what I'm looking for. I think I have lost it. Jupiter. From my own apartment, March 17. Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. As by the one, health is preserved, strengthened, and invigorated. By the other, virtue, which is the health of the mind, is kept alive, cherished, and confirmed. So he's got wonderful bits like that. Here is where he's talking about Homer, I believe. Juno says Homer seeing her Jupiter seated on the top of Mount Ida. But there's a particular quote in here from Homer that I wish I could find as I'm searching through here. But long story short is coming across the bit from Homer here made me, for the first time, truly interested in reading Homer. I have picked up volumes of the Iliad and the Odyssey before and intended to read them, read a few pages, but it's never really sparked my interest in the way that is now sparked from reading the Tattler. And I think I should point out that the Tattler was a publication, and I've got volume 4 here. The Tattler was a publication that was published in 1709 and 1710. And it was this periodical that was put out. And so this is reproductions from, I think, 1808 This little book is from 1808 with the articles that have been published about 100 years previously. But this little book has finally shown me Homer in, I think, the light I've been looking for to see his work in, because suddenly I am excited about reading him, and I thought I'm going to follow that excitement. I'm going to find the exact translation that he mentions here. So I have ordered that translation online, and I'm waiting for it to arrive. We'll see what shape it comes in. It should be theoretically 2 volumes. It's the Iliad in 2 volumes, the exact translation that is mentioned here. And the books are going to be from the 1850s, and I think they're going to be quite falling apart. But I did want that exact translation, and I wanted it in hard copy. And if I could find that passage here, I could tell you who the translator was, but I seem to be missing it here. But anyway, this is what I'm up to in my reading. Let me know if you've read either of these, either any volumes of the Tattler, or if you've read J.R. by Gaddis. I would love to hear your thoughts below, and I hope you're all having a great weekend.